Hi, boys and girls. So, today and yesterday, we have been reading Pumpkin Jack, written and illustrated by Will Hubble. And yesterday, you responded in your reading journals about making a connection about if you ever carved a jack-o'-lantern and what it looked like, or if you were going to carve a pumpkin, what kind of face you would want to use. So that was a connection to Pumpkin Jack because Tim, the character in the story, he had this pumpkin and he named him Jack. And at the end of the season, and he put him in his garden and he rotted and kind of disappeared into the earth. He had some seeds and he kept, or they planted. And again, the life cycle of the pumpkin started, the seed, and then it led to a tiny sprout. And we're going to go through those with my life cycle chart here just to review some of those words. So I have my cards. I'm going to get some tape. Okay, so let's start. Like I just said, Tim, when the pumpkin was rotted, the first pumpkin jack he had at the end of October, he had a pumpkin seed that came from the rotted pumpkin center, and then the seed grew into a pumpkin sprout from the roots, came up this tiny little sprout, and from the sprout grew a pumpkin plant. That's the next word. Seed, sprout, plant. Oops, there you go. Now you can see it. After the plant grows, do you remember what comes next? It's a little yellow and orange blossom or flower, we said in some books. We read flower, some say blossom. And after the blossom appears, you see the tiny green pumpkins start to grow right there in its spot. And sometimes the flower kind of disappears off from the green pumpkin. It's like attached. And after the green pumpkin, we know the last step is the big orange pumpkin. And it keeps going. And that's why we call it a life cycle. Because when this pumpkin dies, and it did in Pumpkin Jack, here he is rotting in our story cover, all of the outside of his surface or pumpkin skin disintegrates into the ground, the stem too, the seeds are only what's left. So this is a good little lesson for you today about retelling Pumpkin Jack, since I've already started to, whoops, sorry boys and girls, that might have made a loud noise, about Pumpkin Jack. Today we're going to practice retelling together. Oops, we'll just drop those on the floor. So retelling, like we've been talking at Readers in the morning when we read stories, readers can retell stories to help others understand what the story is about. So you don't have these cards with you. I'm just going to do this little activity with you to retell the story. After we've listened to it, we've responded in our reading journal, and now we're going to use these cards that I have. So some of them might be kind of hard to see, but they have some sentences. So let's try to put them in order. When we retell, we want to put them in a sequence or an order of events that happened. So what happened first in the story? Tim took the unripe pumpkins to the porch. That wasn't in the beginning of the story. Tim carved Jack again and said, "Welcome back, Jack." Again, that tells me that came later. Okay, this card says, Tim carved his first pumpkin and named him Jack. That's right. So I think that was first. Tim carved his first pumpkin in the beginning of the story. What do you think about this one? After Halloween, his pumpkin began to rot, so he put it in the garden. That's right. His mom said, Tim, it's time for the pumpkin to get tossed away. So he put it in the garden, and mold spread across Jack's face, and he grew flatter and flatter, and he smushed into the ground. Now we're telling it in order. And after the snow melted, only the seeds and stem were left. Oh, the stem was left. I made a mistake before. So So after the snow comes the season of spring. He noticed a sprout came up. And then what will be next? Either he watered and grew and took care of it, or he noticed a flower. Probably the plant comes first because I don't see any flower on it yet. Then the flower. Ooh, actually, and then where does the small green pumpkin come in? Growing blossom vines, where the blossom was, that comes after the blossom. And Tim took the pumpkin to the porch and they finally turned orange, and that's when I remember him bringing them up to the porch before they rotted from the frost in the story. And then he let his friends have some, but he did keep one to carve again and say, "Welcome back, Jack." So this is retelling my story through pictures. Someday we'll practice doing beginning, middle, and end of our story with 3 parts. This has a lot more parts. I'll just go through it one more time. Tim carved his first pumpkin and named him Jack. After Halloween, the pumpkin began to rot, so he put it in the garden. Mold spread over Jack's face and he grew flatter. After the snow melted, only seeds and stem were left. In the spring, a sprout came up. Tim watered and took care of it. As it grew, one day he noticed yellow flowers. He noticed a small green pumpkin growing where a blossom was. Then Tim took the unripe pumpkins to the porch, and they finally turned orange. Tim carved Jack again and said, "Welcome back, Jack." So thank you for watching, boys and girls, and listening to my little lesson for you about retell. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you very soon.